Okay, now they can hear us.
Try to answer best I can.
What about the stalled townhouses up there?
My understanding is there's an offer on it to have it bought and taken over by somebody else. So I know our inspector's been dealing with the potential buyer about what inspections have been completed, what still needs to happen. There's some plan updates that need to be made in order to get it to pass any inspection when they get there. So it looks like that's going to start moving pretty soon.
Does anybody else have any questions or anything? If not, we'll move on to item number 4. It's a public hearing. I don't know if there's anybody in the audience who's not filled out a comment card on this item, which is rezoning a portion of 169 Highway at 18601. You need to fill out a comment card if you want to speak. So I'm going to open a public hearing on rezoning a portion of 18601 North 169 Highway from R1B to B3. If any members of the public wish to speak for or against the item, please identify yourself, give your name and address for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. And first, I'll call on staff to present an overview of the proposal.
Thank you again. I have provided you a staff report on it and the proposed findings of fact on and conclusions of law on this. So the issues on it are that the applicant is seeking to have B3 zoning placed so they can put in a lodge facility. Our zoning code considers that to be a hotel, even though it doesn't operate in the traditional hotel sense. So they need to have B3 zoning versus B2, what's on everything else. There are 3 unanswered questions you guys will have to discuss and debate once you get all the evidence from this hearing coming up related to the plan compliance and the impact on the neighbors and stuff. So it's pretty straightforward, requesting a rezone.
I have Mark Walsh.
My name is Mark Walsh, and I live at 304 Northeast Stanton Lane in Lee Summit, Missouri. And my wife Donna and I own property and are building a new home at 18209 North Main Street, down the street from the proposed location. So referring you to the staff report, the finding of facts, item number 1 speaks to the character of the neighborhood. Number 6, the compatibility of the proposed district classification with nearby properties. The majority of the properties south of the proposed site to 180th Street are single-family homes. A hotel is not a good fit for the area. It is not compatible. Item number 2 points out the city's comprehensive plan for the area under consideration to be for civic or institutional uses, and it provides examples. The proposed hotel is to be built in support of the Herzog Foundation. A private hotel does not meet this requirement. Item number 7 speaks to the extent to which zoning amendment may detrimentally affect nearby property. All property owners along North Main will be impacted. The street dead ends at 180th and 188th. It was not designed to take heavy traffic. It's a neighborhood road that serves the locals that live on that street. Also, please consider the additional vehicles getting onto 169 from 180th and 188th Street. We currently see significant traffic delays at both of those intersections. Item number 8, whether the proposed amendment provides a disproportionately great loss to the individual landowners nearby relative to the public gain. I've already described some of the adverse impact to landowners. What is the public gain for a private hotel? Build the hotel along 169 where it would be compatible with other operations such as the church, Herzog, the trust company across the street. This would avoid the traffic problems and the other issues. Speaking for my wife and I, we'd have no objections to this private hotel on 169 highway. It's just wrong for North Main Street. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight.
Chris Hibbs.
My name is Chris Hibbs and I live in Rock Creek. We live there at 106 Rock Creek Terrace. And I'm here on behalf of neighbors who have also been concerned about the traffic and the amount of good that the city would receive from something that is for a private entity. And he eloquently covered most of the concerns that our neighbors have, the traffic, the street that goes right there. We have a very small neighborhood and it already does carry a lot of traffic through there. So thank you.
David Horrocks.
My name's David Horrocks, live at 18405 North Main. The traffic that would be coming out off that onto North Main, the city of Smithville does not maintain that road in the first place. The county maintains that road. We've been back and forth with the county on that to do something with that road. The only thing the county ever did was maybe put a little patchwork down on that road. The city does not want that road. They will not maintain that road. We've asked time and time again for them to maintain that road. They don't want to put up the funds to do that road. So what makes you think that they're gonna maintain that road with all this added traffic on this road? That road started out as a gravel road, went to chip and seal. And it went back to gravel now, and then it went back to chip and seal. The counties did this every time. The city won't do anything with the road because when the gas company went in there and went up that road, we told them, you need to make the gas company do something about this road. And they said we would, and they did not. And then, so the last time we had them do something, tried to get them to do something about the road, nothing happened. So add more traffic from this hotel is going to deteriorate that road even more. And put more traffic coming in and out, because even there at 188th, when you come out on that road, you got to turn to the right to even see traffic coming from the north. So if you're going to add more traffic coming out there, then it's not going to be feasible to even have anything to do with it. So I say it's not a good idea to come out on North Main. And so even people come out of Rock Creek onto that road on a driveway, because when that all got rezoned back 20-something years ago to put Rock Creek in, no driveways or anything was to come out onto North Main back then. And that was the agreement that we had with the city to not, we'd say, go ahead and you can do the development of Rock Creek. We'll let you put the sewers through our property to do that, as long as nobody can come back out onto North Main to add more traffic onto that road, which nobody wants to take care of. I even have offered to the county to, why don't we just make this a private road and we'll take care of the road? Because City of Smithville don't want to do it, and you guys don't want to do it. You say that you give all your money to Smithville because you share roads with Smithville. And you have to give up all your money that is allowed for 3 miles of road. So, okay.
Mitch McGuire.
Mitch McGuire. I live off North Main Street as well. I'll piggyback off of what Dave kind of spoke about. So I've lived there over 10 years and I've seen progress go through the city. We've built up. I've seen a lot of construction down our street on the north and south side. There is an influx of traffic. Like you said, the road is not maintained. We've been back and forth with the county, the mayor, with Smithville, for probably a little over a year. So that's the road issue. So stormwater, I look at that was proposed. We keep putting more and more blacktop down. We already messed with the stormwater on the north side with the Herzog Foundation. So my property has a creek that runs right through it. My driveway runs over the creek. So in the past few years, we get a lot of rainwater, so it'll actually go over my driveway. So we have that issue with stormwater now. The side of the street, the culverts, where the drainage is, they haven't been serviced by the side of the streets. I've told Clay County that as well. I'll jump over to the plumbing issues too. You know, if we keep adding 74 hotels, rooms, you know, we're gonna have an influx. The sewer line goes through my property as well. So I'm hooked up to the positive side of the force main, and the whole Rock subdivision is hooked to it as well. I don't see anywhere that the lift station can handle that. There's no evidence of that. City water pressure, what's that gonna do? I look at that as well. We talked about the traffic on North Main. And the area, you know, you look at history of putting more commercial in a residential area. You know, we're looking at evaluation of home areas, the Rock Creek subdivision. It's brand new. You know, no one wants to see the hotel go up right next to that. I believe that's why people move from the city to Smithfield to kind of get away from that. And then we're bringing this up north. I understand it's a individually owned, but who knows what the future beholds with building a commercial setup like that. So that's kind of what I look at. So I'm not for the hotel. So see what we can do. Thanks.
I believe Trudy LaForce wants to speak.
Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted there for a minute. Yes, I would. Trudy LaForce at 411 Northeast 188th Street. My property is a corner property, so the west side of my property is on North Main. And I was quite surprised to hear about this. I did get the letter from the city about it. It mentioned nothing about a hotel, lodge, or anything else. And I have two concerns. One is with the water issue, because there is so much runoff there. And I know the Herzog Foundation did spend a lot of money doing new infrastructure under 188th Street from the field on the north side of 188th Street. And I don't know if that has increased the drainage from there. It may not have anything to do with it. But the last rain we had of significance, there was water over a lot of the North Main. And it has been doing that ever since Rock Creek was built. And they put that little service road into Rock Creek from North Main. And I too remember there was not supposed to be an entrance to Rock Creek from North Main. I have not objected to what is there now, because there, in an emergency, at least there would be two ways for people from Rock Creek to leave that area. I also just don't understand how this can come about. I think there's been a history of people or companies coming to the city and wanting to do things, and what they present will be approved according to the guidelines, but then they come back and there'll be some reason they can't do it the way the city okayed it. And there's a history of the city going ahead and going along with what the person needs to do. If it's going to cost the person more money, whatever. And to me, that's that person's responsibility. It's not the city's responsibility to change what was presented to them in the first place and accept that. But I was not aware there were going to be cabins there until they came up with that. They aren't even finished yet, so I don't know if that's an issue. I doubt if that will be an issue. But another thing with a hotel would be a parking lot. And the more concrete that is put down, the more runoff you have. And we need more areas that will absorb the water than we do more concrete for it to run off from. And those are just my thoughts on it. And I just can't believe that this is something that is being proposed. So I do object to it. Thank you.
Mr. and Mrs. Farrell, would you like to speak?
You're muted.
Okay. We live in Rock Creek.
Yes, we're 18302 Rock Creek Drive. And we have street runoff coming behind our property and draining the streets. Everything that comes off the street goes down into a ditch area, basically, and right behind our house. And the sewers, the runoff water, if it increases any at all, it's gonna be a real problem for our resale value on our home.
Yeah, we are worried about our property values. And I have another question. There's lots of places north of town where they're building and it's not
Yeah,
residential.
Or south.
Yeah, either way, and it's not residential. Why can't they go someplace like that? Just my question.
Alexis McGuire, would you like to speak? Or Kimberly?
If Kimberly or Alexis want to speak, you will have to unmute your system. Seeing none, yeah.
This is Kimberly Dupuy. I also live in Rock Creek, and I would just like to back up everything that everyone is saying and hope that the city takes to heart what the residents here in Smithville would like to say. So thank you for considering objecting this.
Kimberly, can you state your address, please?
Absolutely. 18303 Rock Creek Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we do have the applicants here if they'd like to come up and speak.
Good evening, I'm Daryl Jones, and I'm the president of the Herzog Foundation, a new resident to Smithville. I love your town. Thanks for what you've done. I lived in St. Joseph for 35 years and pastored there. And just within the last year, I've moved to Smithville, and my wife and I love it here. So thank you for that.
Can you provide your address, please?
Yes, we are at 712 Apache Court, which may not yet show up on Google, but I promise you, I live there. It's a great community, and the mission of the foundation is to advance Christian education across the country. And because there's not a federal board of Christian education, it's like the wild, wild west among Christian schools across the country. And so we have built a training facility that brings up to 75 people at a time into Smithville, using local restaurants to cater all of the meals. And we're bringing them here to train them in donor development and marketing and board staff relationships, strategic planning, those kinds of things. But we believe that the lodge is really going to enable us to do that more efficiently and more effectively for the sake of the private dollars that are the foundation. I think the primary advancements to Main Street have been, adjustments and modifications that the foundation frankly has made in terms of storm runoff. And I know that there are additional codes that the city is going to require that we maintain and make happen, certainly for storm runoff, as well as sidewalks, as well as maintaining Main Street in general. And I think if you drive by our facility, you'll see that we really want to be good neighbors, and we really want to increase property value, and we really want to make the neighborhood something that all neighbors, that all of us can be proud of. So I just wanted to come and speak on behalf of the foundation regarding the mission and the purpose. Honestly, the majority of people who will be coming to our conferences and come to our conferences are coming from out of state. So the vast majority are flying into Kansas City, and we pick them up with shuttle vans that we have that will transport them for 2, 3, 4 days, depending on the training, to the lodge itself. So even in terms of the number of cars that will be on Main Street, it really will be significantly less than the 74 rooms that are being discussed. And the reason is because we transport them and then they're here. Now, I do believe we're going to have a fleet of e-bikes that will utilize the trail system here. But for the record, it's for the most part people that are coming in for maximum of 4 days at a time. And we'll shuttle them from the airport to the campus. And then once they're on campus, they're there. So that's pretty much the mission and the use for how the lodge will work. But for the record, we just feel like it's going to be a much better experience for those who are coming to experience Smithville on the same campus and come to appreciate the same community that my wife and I have come to love. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Everybody, hi Planning Commission. My name is Anthony Luca. I currently live in Kansas City. I work for Focal Design Studio, who are the architects for the Herzog Foundation, the Herzog Cabins, and for the future lodge.
Can you go ahead and provide your full address, please?
Yes, my address is 1632 Jefferson Street, Kansas City, Missouri.
Thank you.
I'm going to try and get to all this in 3 minutes. There's a lot of valid concerns that are brought up, and I want to make sure I get a point to address all of them. To begin with, the main topic here is zoning. A lot of these other questions, while very important and valid questions, are things that we will further study and will eventually come back to you and the community with for the site plan review, including traffic, storm, all the other support information that will help. I don't want to talk about traffic for too long because I feel like Daryl did a great job kind of minimizing that. It's going to be primarily a shuttle service, so there's not going to be a lot of traffic involved. On top of that, we know the city will eventually require us to do a traffic study when it comes to the design of that road. Talking about stormwater, I think if you drive by the foundation building as it currently sits, you can see how dramatically improved 188th Street is, both from the road, the sidewalk, the storm infrastructure that came along with it. As far as the runoff associated with that project, the city actually required us to detain any additional runoff that was coming off that property with the construction of the new building. So there's a multi-thousand-gallon cistern buried underground in the current Herzog Foundation building that is detaining any additional runoff from paved surfaces, from the building, from any hard surfaces, to control that runoff and to slowly release it when the demand on the system has been reduced. This requirement will also be in place for the lodge. Since it is a currently unimproved site, any additional hardscape that we put on there is going to have to be mitigated with detention in some form or fashion, so we don't stress the neighbors and the existing roadways and infrastructure that is currently in place. Again, with the improvements on Northeast 188th Street, this is something similar that will eventually be required for Main Street as well. So that will turn the corner and continue down for the full length of the property that is under question. Plumbing was brought up as well. The system, what it's capable of, we'll have to have engineers test it and tell us what we can and can't do and what improvements will have to be made to support it so we don't overtax anything. It certainly isn't our intent to overstress the system as it currently states. I do want to kind of reiterate that the foundation, I think it's clear to us through the building that is complete and the cabins that will soon be complete. They're extremely conscious to the site, to being good stewards of their property and their program, and being good neighbors, and have a high commitment to quality. It is their intent. They see the value in the land and the beauty in the land that is up there. And it is every bit their intent to use that as an asset and to develop around that and to make this building fit with the other buildings on this campus and not be an overbearing presence. All that design is still underway, and eventually, once this rezoning and replatting process is done, we will obviously have to come back before you with the full site plan review that has renderings of the project, additional details, materials, plantings, and all the information that is so very important for every neighbor and every community member to be aware of. So thank you all for your time. It's good to see you in person after a few years. Thank you.
Can I add something to what I said? I'm sorry. I didn't use my 3 minutes. Is that okay?
I'll give you 1 more minute.
1 minute. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Would you come up here?
Restate your name. You don't need to restate your address, though.
I'm Chris Hibbs from Rock Creek 106 Rock Creek Terrace. And none of us has any doubt of their intentions. And I don't think anybody objects to their foundation or any of their goals or any of those kinds of things. I think that we are thinking about how this is benefiting an entity. And we are people that already live here. We already pay property taxes and it affects us a lot. And they're thinking about their entity and not our city. This doesn't really benefit Smithville. It benefits Herzog, which I guess maybe indirectly there's some, but that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Seeing no members of the public left to speak, I call the hearing closed. Do I have a first and a second on item number 5, rezoning a portion of 18601 North 169 from R1B to B3? Do I have a second? And then we'll go through the finding of facts for this proposed rezoning.
If I may, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Excuse me. Procedurally, I would suggest we open it up for general discussion before you get to the findings of fact, to see if there are any questions that anybody has before we get into the findings. And then when you're ready to do the findings, hopefully all the information will have already been gleaned.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Yeah.
Drainage has been brought up more than a few times on some projects and aesthetics and things like that. My question is the foundation willing to work with the neighbors and discussion in order to come to some kind of consensus or compromise in order to move the project forward in an amicable way where there's no animosity? We understand your goals, they're laudable. But part of that stewardship is working with your neighbors. And I just want to know that you're going to do everything you can to be good neighbors and good stewards.
Yeah, microphone, are we good?
You gotta come up here.
Okay, sure. Sure.
Is now.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will speak for me and say on behalf of the foundation, yes, we would be happy to work with the neighbors. And typically, we would do that through the city, wouldn't we? As opposed to, the foundation talking to all the neighbors in the neighborhood. That could be a rather challenging responsibility, but through the city and the codes and the design, I would think that would be the formal communication structure. But the answer is yes. We do want to be good neighbors, and I would think I would hope that the Good Shepherd Catholic Church would attest to that as well, as they butt up right next to us. So the answer in a word is yes.
I'm just interested in assuring them the
Sure.
best interest.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just curious real quick. Sorry to interrupt. I mean, we're supposed to be talking about the zoning right now. I mean, the site information is a separate issue. So I was wondering, I think we might want to just make sure we're sticking to the issue at hand. Yeah.
And I guess for myself, some of what I want to talk about is in fact what we are going to discuss in the finding of facts as it relates to the comprehensive plan. So I guess I wait till we get to item number 2 and finding of facts to discuss that.
You can certainly, you can discuss it. This is open discussion time, so you can discuss it now. If you have statements or concerns or whatever, you can do it now and then go to the vote.
B3, being this could be a hotel, what is the height of in B3? What is allowed on the height of the buildings?
off the top of my head, I'm not 100% certain. I think it's 5 stories is the maximum height, but it can go up taller from a setback standpoint. So the farther you get away from a property line, you can go up. For example, the Catholic Church has an 84-foot high steeple, but they're centered on that lot, so they have more than enough. So, yeah.
Can I make a comment to that?
Yeah, if it's a question, yes, as it relates to answer his question.
Yeah, as far as the height, I just want to address that. It is the intent of the foundation that the building that is currently the main foundation building on the site stay the most prominent building on the campus. In order to do that, the lodge building is currently designed as a 2-story building. So we're trying to keep it as low and in the landscape and tucked behind the already existing tree line as much as we can, which frankly it makes for a more expensive building. Obviously, if you go further out, it's going to be more challenging than if you go up, but they do want to be very sensitive, and the foundation building is designed to be the prominent one on campus, and this to tuck into the trees and remain kind of low in 2 stories. So 5 stories is, I agree, too tall.
Yeah, but and I agree. I mean, I think that is, we're talking again about the site plan itself, but he asked the question about B3, and that will allow 5 stories. So if we do rezone this, then yeah, there is a potential that may not be with this particular thing. Yeah, in the future, yeah, definitely something can happen. And there's no, once we go there, we can't really go back at that point.
Walk it back at that point.
Could we? We could, just quick statement, you could make a conditional requirement on the rezoning to only allow 2 stories. So
Not with the current version, but we do have a conceptual plan concept that would have those restrictions. Could be something that could be placed in. You can restrict buildings, you can restrict uses, you can restrict whatever. But it has to be a conceptual plan.
Okay, so we could go ahead and rezone to B3 and then implement restrictions later.
No.
No.
Once it's B3, it's B3.
All right,
So if you're going to do it, you need to do it simultaneously.
I see.
It's a bell that you can unring the B3 bell.
Got it.
If you do a conceptual plan simultaneous with the rezoning, then you can cap the B3 potential uses with the conceptual plan.
We don't have that here.
Right, no,
To do that.
the first mention of bringing it down was Mr. Weininger just a few seconds ago. So, yeah, that.
Would that apply to all B3 in the city after that point, or just
Well, yeah.
this site?
It doesn't apply to B3, it applies to, you mean, no, the conceptual plan applies to the land that it
Just
is
that.
approved on.
Okay.
Similar to what happened down south by 144th and the bank. There's a conceptual plan over it that limits the uses and the density of housing and those things. Similar concept, but from a city strategic standpoint, once a zoning is approved by the Board of Aldermen, that zoning and all the uses listed are available options. So at that point, it becomes a more of an administrative function related to what kind of building they want to put up. That, that can change however they, at any time. And there's no real restriction other than, are they protecting the water quality as it leaves the site? Are they not, the stormwater detention, the water line and sewer line stuff from the city's perspective isn't an issue because it was designed to have 160 houses additional sitting on it, and Catholic Church bought that land. So
I have a question. I don't know that it really goes to site plan after the fact, but I think it kind of needs to be, no more. Go ahead. 2 minutes. Okay.
Sitting here looking at the map here on this, lived there for 40 years. Okay, and this is where you're planning on rezoning this right here. This is a a spring that comes up right here. Spring, I don't know if any of you guys been up there, look at it. But this spring has been coming up there for years, right there, right behind where they built the cabins. If you put a hotel in there and that spring has come in and it feeds my pond and all this runoff comes into my pond, it's filled up my pond with runoff. Besides that, when you build right there in that area, right there, how's a foundation going to sit in that? Because that spring has been there for ever here. So that's soft ground. There's cattails growing in that right there right now. So you're going to disturb that natural spring that's right there coming out that comes in and feeds my pond. You know, I take the majority of the runoff from all this. Okay. So if all this runoff that's going to be on this property from then, and you put concrete and everything there, it's all going to come to me. It's going to run over my dam. So nothing's going to absorb into the ground because this is already wet ground right there. If you don't believe it, go up there and see it. Because I've lived there for 40 years. I know. So what this is. And that spring, even in the driest part, you go up there right now because it's so dry. That spring is still running. So it's an underground spring has never dried up. Even back in the 90s when it got, very, very dry, that spring never stopped. So that's what you're getting ready to do. You're gonna let them build that, and that's gonna sink down, and you're gonna have more problems because that's totally wet ground there.
I guess this has probably go more to the site plan side, but with going with the B3 and what we're looking at maybe doing here, I do have a question, I guess, for us. They're coming to the city, but yet I'm hearing that road is a county road. So do we work with, how are we going to work with the county to make sure that all the infrastructure and everything meets what we're looking at doing if we rezone this? So
And that's
explain that to me.
Yes, if I can. We've been working with the county since 2018 to try and redo the shared road use and maintenance agreement that we have with them. It sounds like the last conversation I had heard is that it's maybe getting somewhat close to doing some of it, but not all of it yet. But to the extent that we have site plan rules that were changed last year, year before, I don't remember exactly the date, to incorporate the subdivision rules. That's where we address all of those issues. One of them would be improvements to the road, similar to the site plan work on and the development agreement we did with the foundation to put the curb and gutter and sidewalk and all that. Similar requirements would be for Main Street along that side, but only to their property line. They don't have to pave everybody else's all the way down, but there would be paving, curb, gutter requirements there as a part of that process. Until we know what kind of building exactly it looks like and how much parking, it becomes a function of, we don't want to try to answer the question without all the data. So we don't know the traffic, we don't know the stormwater impact, but we do know we have procedures in place to address those issues when that time comes.
So I guess my question would be, with what we were looking at, rezoning to B3, that portion of Main Street inside the city limits is part of that road our responsibility then?
Well, ultimately, we have consistently worked, well, to be quite frank, most of Main Street is in the city. There's a section, Ms. LaForce has a section and Mr. Horrocks has a section that are outside the city, and they're all on the east side. Everything on the west side of North Main is in the city. Okay. But it's still part of an agreement from 2012 that we have been trying to get updated with the county now for 4 years.
Okay.
So it is the county's maintenance responsibility, And that's been part of everyone's consternation. So we're trying to address that. But yes, it would be a requirement to do an improvement.
So in the R1B1, that's what they currently are, right?
R1B is what the current zoning is.
Oh, what I said, I said R1.
Yeah, R1B1, but yeah.
May I say something?
No.
Don't know who we're talking about.
Who,
Trudy LaForce.
Yeah. Yeah, ultimately, I mean, we're at a point where it's more of a question than it is a presentation. The public hearing's done. If you guys want to ask her questions, you certainly can from a procedural standpoint. This is a time for you guys to ask questions of staff, of the public, of the applicant, to answer your questions about how are you going to make your findings?
And I'm just concerned that we keep talking about like the site plan issues and it's like, I feel like we're confusing the issue at this point. And that's why I appreciate everyone that commented, but everything I've heard is mostly related to site plans versus the actual rezoning. And I think that's what we need to focus on right now.
Yeah.
I understand that, but there's a little bit of it that needs to be tied in with
Sure.
making our decision is
And
some of the
you had,
questions are.
you had proposed findings that identify the 8 items you're to look at. So to the extent it's in here.
Yes, there's
then you
some of
can-
that in here. Yeah, I
So-
agree.
Yeah. So.
But John, I think you're a little confused because,
Mitch, this
right.
is a debate.
well, no, it's not debate. I'm about to ask a question because we've been asking questions actually, right? And, no, we're talking about stormwater, right?
No.
No, and the road. Yes, we are. We're talking about rezoning for all these particular issues, right?
Well, what I was trying to say is this is for them to ask questions of you.
Oh, they're gonna ask me the question?
If they want.
So I
because
just sit back here and they'll ask me questions.
Yes, if
And
they
I
have-
shouldn't ask questions now? Am I speaking out of turn?
Yeah, well, yeah,
Because I thought
ultimately the
this was
public
a-
hearings where you make the comment.
Because we just asked about the stormwater runoff. Herzog mentioned, oh, we did development under the current foundation, blah, blah, blah. It looks great. I think it's great. It improved the corner of 188th and North Main, 169.
I'm going
So-
to close it.
It still hasn't fixed the
now.
issue.
I'm going to close it now that if anybody on the committee has any questions of anybody in the audience, please ask them now, or we are going to move on, if we don't have any other discussion, to going over the finding of facts. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the finding of facts and conclusions of law. I know there are 4, item 2, 7, and 8, we have an or on those. So I don't know, does anybody on the committee have any concerns about item 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 9? If we don't have any debate or discussion on those items of finding of facts, would you make a motion and a second that we agree and approve those items? And then we'll come back to discuss item 2, 7, and 8, since we have an or on those.
Four, 5, 6, and 9.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, then Brandy, would you call roll?
Can I ask one question? real quick? I'm sorry, Jack. Item number 4 talks about the suitability of the uses to which the property has been restricted under its existing zoning. Can you explain that response to me?
Yeah, generally in Missouri law associated with these issues, the question becomes, it can't be developed in the way it's set. It doesn't get developed. And is the zoning that is on site and its restrictions, is it suitable? And it's currently zoned for single family housing. So that issue becomes a little blurred by the fact that when the Catholic Church acquired it, the zoning doesn't change because they're not subject to, for their church facility, a worship facility isn't subject to city zoning. They are subject to all the other rules, but not zoning. So you have single family housing zoning where a church sits. So that's how it ends up here. Is the single family housing zoning appropriate for there? Is it suitable? That's the question.
And this is indicating, I mean, I'm assuming this answer is indicating that it's not. That's why they're asking for this rezoning, right?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
so this is a finding of fact, and that is true that the current zoning will not allow them to build
Well,
what they're planning on.
yeah, the question is not whether the current zoning will or won't allow them to build. The question is that zoning suitable? Is that restriction to single family housing appropriate?
Okay.
For this site, this area. And it got, like I said, it got blurry when the church bought it because now you got a church and a parking lot in the middle of it. So is it suitable to build houses around it or not? I hope that answered your question. Yeah, okay.
Any other questions? If not, Randy, call roll.
Okay, Dennis,
Aye.
Deb,
Aye.
Billy,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier,
Aye.
5-0.
Now we will address specifically item number 2 and the fact we have either A or B. And I guess, I don't know if we need to discuss. You want to discuss item 2? I guess we need a motion and a second to discuss.
You don't
Finding of
need-
facts
You're
number
open
2.
for discussion.
Open for discussion,
So
okay.
you can someone can make a motion to make it A or to make it B, whichever one they choose. And if there's a second, then you can discuss that particular issue related to A or B based upon a motion and a second. That way you get a record that is crystal clear what you're talking about. Does that make sense?
Okay, I think what I want to do then, I want to make a motion that on item 2, that it's item B.
So now, motion and second, you can open it up for discussion and debate, ask questions, whatever. Procedurally, you guys are trying to determine if you think A should have been the answer, now's your time to speak up and say why. If there is no discussion then or questions, then you just call the vote.
I guess the reason why I am going, I'll just share, going with B is we did do a new comprehensive plan. And I think once we start deviating from our comprehensive plan, it gets easier and easier to continue to do that. So that's where I'm looking at B myself.
So the only portion of 2A is just the 72 rooms is the issue? Because otherwise you still have all those in a B3, right? Or not?
Well, let me, to clarify it, and I'll read it again. It's been a while. Civic. The question is, the comprehensive plan specifically calls out for civic and institutional uses. And then what they, and every word in there come directly out of the comprehensive plan up to the point where it says oriented areas. The next one is a finding that you would have to make to say that a proposed lodge building is or fits a civic or institutional use as defined in the comprehensive plan. So that's, that last sentence of that finding is what you'd have to make, that a lodge building like it's described meets the definition of civic or institutional as called for in the comprehensive plan. If you don't think it does, it's B. If you think it does, then it's A. Is that clear enough? Okay.
A conference center would fit the comprehensive plan. Is that like?
Well, the conference center, if you look at the comprehensive plan and the map in it, the B2 zoning that was done occurred prior to the new comprehensive plan. So it was incorporated into that. And it's, the future land use map specifically shows that section there. The entire block of the Catholic Church owned land is the area that's in the purple or whatever for purposes of the comprehensive plan aspect of it. So.
I think we need to cut this off. We should request a stay.
You can make a request to the chair that can we table this and come back? And maybe reorganize or something? That would be up to the chair and the rest of the board, or if they want to, they can either table it or you can pull it, either one. It ultimately is, it's a procedural scenario.
Okay, before we do that, I have a question. If they were to put a school
There's a college. Yeah.
on this, like if they were to put a 72-room college or a 72-room school, would that be within?
That's
That would be civic.
literally the question you guys are
They
tasked
put in a
with.
pool, anything that the public can use, right? I mean, I think they said it clearly this are out of town people, so I don't see where anyone in our town can use these facilities. So I don't consider that civic.
That I'm thinking the physical building.
Oh, it says
I'm trying to wrap my
institutional,
head around a physical building.
But
Well, and keep in mind, the comprehensive plan isn't talking about any buildings.
Right. Okay. It's
Until
the
you get,
use.
until you
It's
get
the
down.
use.
It's,
the
yeah, it
use.
says specifically the use.
So I guess since it's been asked of the public, is this something that we want to dissect further in another meeting or do some more studying ourselves before we move forward with voting on the additional findings of fact? Is that a good question?
Well, no, I think actually, I mean, you've held a public hearing. You've got your information. If you don't have enough information to make your decision, ultimately now's the time to ask those questions. If you're asking, what if they come in and propose a slight change, then it's all over, starting off from fresh.
I guess what I'm asking is,
excuse me,
with the finding of facts as presented, how do I want to say this?
I think we should move forward.
Just
keep
move
going. Yeah,
forwards?
Move forward. Let's finish this
Okay.
up. We have a couple questions about the room issue. That's really I think that's one of the biggest things there. If
That's
if
fine.
it's an institution or if it is a civic, which I agree with you on that. John, if it's civic, then it's not for general public, but if it's an institution, it could be a school.
Yeah, but I mean, I would still consider an institution, still it's civic or, institutional use. I kind of feel like if you kind of look at those, what's happening here. I mean, these aren't educational facilities. This is for out of town people to come in and for this business. Yeah.
For schools.
And I feel like, I think Mr. Walsh, when he said, the no public gain for a private hotel, I mean, that's kind of that kind of stuck with me on that particular, because I'm like, I feel that's more of a public service type thing for the city is what that zoning should be, or what the comprehensive plan is saying this area needs to be. So, and I don't feel like this particular plan that we see today meets that definition, in my opinion.
Would it, if it was, say, open to the public, I mean.
But that's not
Well,
the
ultimately,
option.
yeah, that's not
That's
before.
not
you.
our call, okay,
Yeah, that's
like I
not
said, I'm
before.
just-
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? No?
Yeah.
Just two questions.
Yeah.
No.
Does it meet in the city's future use? And do they pay taxes?
Public comment is over. It's up to us now to vote.
So
I'd like to make a motion to go with B, 2B.
it's actually been moved and seconded.
I've already
so
made the
that's on
motion, we've
table.
had a second, we've been discussing.
All right.
So that's on the table. If there's no further discussion, you can call, and Brandy will have to call roll.
Any further discussion on going with B for finding a fact number 2? Seeing none, Brandy, would you please call roll?
Alderman Chevalier,
Just to confirm, we're going with B, right?
B.
All right.
I was gonna do that too.
was that a yes?
Yeah, we want.
Yes or I, you're saying I want B to be the plan. We get into that regular all the time in this. I apologize, but
Sorry, Brandy.
Did you say aye?
Aye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Billy?
Aye.
Deb?
Aye.
Dennis?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
5-0.
We move on to item number 7 of the finding of facts, the extent to which the zoning amendment may detrimentally affect nearby property. We have A, there's no detriment is anticipated to the adjacent nearby undeveloped land, or B, the ability of the adjacent land to develop in accordance with the future land use map of the comprehensive plan will be detrimentally impacted by the expansion of more intense business district further from the 169, 188th Street intersection that generated the initial ability of business zoning at that corner. Do I have a first and a second to open up for discussion?
you can actually,
I don't think.
if
Just
somebody
do
wants to
it.
make a motion on
Okay.
A or B.
Okay,
So either way.
I make a motion, we discuss it,
do you want to discuss A or B?
both.
How about this? I'll make a motion to approve 7B.
Then you can discuss it.
I'll second that.
So on that drawing there is that you sent us out, is the red, is that, what zone is that on that color key? Because it looks like it's all the way across 188th.
Yeah, on there, it's identified as commercial. And that's the B2 zoning
Okay.
for that's in place on the foundation. Below it is the institutional civic stuff. And that's everything north of Rock Creek and south of Herzog.
Yeah, I looked at, I see that one.
And I did a horrible job, that little black line. The triangle is my attempt at roughly drawing the proposed area that we're talking about on the rezone.
Any comments, discussion?
I'll say that, B kind of shows that this plan, deviation, detrimentally impact the other businesses surrounding, correct? I mean, kind of
Well, it's not business, it's land.
land. Yeah. So in my opinion, if they build this 72 room lodge, hotel, whatever, I mean, and another business wants to build something on their land that's suitable for this, and this is not getting any tax revenue or anything like that. I mean, I feel like that is a detriment, or it could be considered a detriment to those that are trying to build a hotel on their own, right?
Well, yeah, and ultimately, I would suggest that you reread number 7 specifically, which states the extent to which the proposed zoning amendment may detrimentally affect nearby property. So not somebody wanting to put a hotel down here, it's the neighbors around it, the property to the north of it, the east of it, the south of it, as you go around it.
Is there not business close by? I thought there was.
There's a bunch of zoning
Yeah.
on, north and
Right directly
northwest.
north is there.
So that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's there, that whole.
But B2 is just office buildings, right? It wouldn't be a hotel.
That's why it's B3. They can't do B2 and have a hotel. So yes.
It wouldn't be, a hotel wouldn't go there
Right.
unless they want to rezone that too.
The secondary aspect, just so you understand, the comprehensive plan and its compliance applies to rezoning. So if there's commercial zone land in town, like we talked about earlier, that land doesn't have to go through the comprehensive plan review. Does it meet the comprehensive plan standards? Because that only occurs in a rezone. So then it's down to the engineering, water, sewer, stormwater, streets, traffic, all that kind of stuff. So they're separate and distinct. This is your one bite at the comprehensive plan apple, is what I'm saying.
Back when we were working on that comprehensive plan, the citizen input at the time was to try to keep as much commercial or business as possible to the south end and keep the north end not as congested.
With our characteristic
Yeah,
areas.
and that's something that's coming back because I know we worked on that a lot.
It's the north residential character area.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was pretty much it.
And I think this is one of the few findings of fact that kind of addresses some of the traffic and other concerns that we've heard today as well. So this is the perfect spot to.
It is. And
use that
I'm thinking
determination.
if the zoning to B3 were to be allowed and you could do a lodge or a hotel or whatever, then there's land across 169 that could eventually come back and say, hey, they did it. We'd like to have B3. We want to build a mega hotel because the lake's down the road. And that would completely obliterate the.
And that's why I made the comment on
Yeah.
item number 2 about our
Yeah.
characteristic areas.
Yeah.
That we drafted.
Yeah, that it takes me a while to get my head wrapped around things, but eventually I'll get there. Um,
Anybody else have any comments, questions? Ready to have Brandy call roll?
To clarify, we're talking 7B.
7B.
And I means yes on 7B.
Okay, Deb,
Hi.
Melissa,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier,
Aye.
Billy,
Aye.
5-0.
Now we'll go on to item number 8. Same scenario, A or B. It says whether the proposed amendment provides a disproportionately great loss to the individual landowners nearby relative to the public gain. A, no loss to landowners is expected, or B, the undeveloped adjacent property will lose value as its future development opportunities will be limited given the future land use map requirements and its proximity to the heaviest use business district.
Jack, could you expand on B a little bit there?
To clarify, if, for example, and this is a proposed, you guys can change it how you want. But the subject of this one is that we have a future land use plan that identifies the land around it as ag or residential low density ag or something along those lines. And most of it is either county ag or R1B, or some of it's city ag too. But so the question is, can that be developed in lower density residential agricultural? Can it be developed in that fashion if you have the highest density use next to it? So it's a question of step down zoning. You've heard us talk about that in meetings in the past. I guess the question is, do people that living in houses want to live next to B3? Will they want to develop their house right next to B3? So that becomes the question. That's what this fact, proposed finding of fact, intimates.
So if going with B, we were talking about the comprehensive plan and the characteristic group areas, B would go along with what we've already been discussing. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
it is saying that if the other land is required to follow the future land use plan map, it would make it more difficult for them to develop because it becomes less likely that they'd want to develop next to a B3 use.
Any more comments?
I was gonna say, we don't have a motion for this yet, right?
No.
Okay, I'll make a motion for 8B.
I'll second. Jumped the gun there on discussion. Sorry.
And you said B, right?
B.
Okay.
I think we've already discussed it. Any more discussion or questions, comments? Not Brandy, call roll.
Dennis,
Aye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Deb,
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier,
Aye.
Billy.
Aye.
5-0.
And lastly, we do have the ultimate decision. Do you make a recommendation of approval to the board or not? If you recall in the conditional use permit scenario from several months ago, we voted this section first and then never went back and made the findings. We've made the findings now. So now you have before you both is and is not, or does and does not options for the recommendation. So you can use any of these proposed. These aren't part of the findings, but these are your options. So a motion to.
Can you describe the difference between B and C, just
Yeah.
out of curiosity?
Yeah. B is a legal finding that the zoning is or is not compatible with the zoning code. The factors, it says 560C, that's the 9 items, excuse me, in the findings. So it would be the proposed zoning either is or is not compatible with those factors. And you've got a 6-3, 3 of them you said no on. And then C is your official recommendation to the board.
So we'll need to make at least two motions today?
No, you can do it in one. You can say it is, you have 4 options. You can say it is compatible and you do not recommend. You can say it is not compatible and you do recommend. And the converse of both of those. So.
Okay, we can say it is compatible, but still not recommended.
Absolutely, you have that option.
Okay.
Keeping in mind, you said no to 3 of them. So whether it's compatible with those factors, you've said no to 3. but there is no legal requirement that you be consistent. It makes it a little less likely to the extent that everything's been 5-0. Because sometimes you can have them be 3-2, 3-2, 3-2 on 3 different ones. But 3 of the people or 4 of the people say no overall because of the one issue I voted against. So I'm giving you your options. The easiest way is making a motion that B, that the proposed zoning either is or is not, and then make it consistent with does or does not in C in one motion. If that makes sense.
Yes, and I think I want to make the motion on B, that the proposed zoning is not compatible with the factors set forth in section 400.560C of the zoning ordinance. And on C, the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Smithfield does not recommend approval of the rezoning the property to B3 subject to compliance with the site plan ordinance when development occurs.
I'll second that.
Brandy?
Okay.
And procedural questions of me of what that means.
I just have one question. So if this moves forward as proposed, I mean, there's not, they can have the option, right, to resubmit.
Certainly.
Yeah,
They can
if they get their,
yeah, they can
once they get
relook
ducks
at
in
it.
a row and stuff, okay.
Yeah. The other aspect of it is, this is your recommendation to the Board of Aldermen. They can request that it not go to the board and they start over. Or they can this can go to the board and they can address it at the board level and see what the board says. The board doesn't have to listen to you guys. You're a recommending body.
Because the board has the final say.
Yeah, absolutely. So you make your recommendation to the board. So if that makes sense.
Okay. Alderman Chevalier,
Aye.
Billy, Melissa,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
and Deb.
Aye.
5-0.
So there will be, this can move forward to the Board of Aldermen next week with the findings as you've made with a negative recommendation. That's where it sits.
Move on to item number 6, public hearing.
Before we proceed on the public hearing, I'm going to ask the applicants, based upon the recommendations, you want to table this to see if we can, that way we can shorten the time up. We don't have to discuss it if they request it to be pulled or tabled.
Okay.
To a future meeting.
Yeah, like it be pulled, not sent.
Yeah. Both.
So do I table it or do I?
To be quite frank, let's just postpone indefinitely.
Okay.
That way it gives them the option to do however they want. And I'll talk to the applicant on the zoning stuff, what their options are on that as well. So, but right now the zoning will be going to the board with a negative recommendation for a vote.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'm sorry, what were we're gonna postpone indefinitely?
Indefinitely.
I make a motion to postpone indefinitely.
Second.
I think this is, is it a voice vote, Brandy? Since it's not a substantive issue, it's a procedural issue.
Yeah. Okay. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 5-0.
Since we pulled item 6, that would also eliminate item 7.
Yep. Those are both tabled or postponed indefinitely.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Nobody's going to say no, Brandy.
Yep.
Didn't even bother asking.